Okay, so this is the final video. So I'm going to do a full colour illustration from start to finish this time. Now I mentioned earlier about having the right equipment for the job. And what I'm going to use in this final illustration is a mixture of different kinds of media. As I said earlier in one of the videos, I tend to layer up when I draw, so I correct as I go through each stage. So I'll go through, as we saw, I'll go through the HB pencil stage, where I will draw in the basic figure, then I'll draw on top of that with the with a darker pencil. What I'll then do is I'll then add colour washes, either with watercolour or with gouache, then probably go into that, over that with coloured pencils, and finish it off with brush pens. If I've got anything that's a bit fluffy or feathery, I might then think about using pastel as well. So as you can see, I've got a range of brush sizes, and I think it's really important to have different size brushes. If you're trying to do a big area with a small brush, it gets really frustrating. So if you look after your brushes, they're a good investment. They should last for years if you look after them. I tend to work with designer gouache rather than watercolour paints. Purely because you can use it thick like poster paint and acrylic, or you can water it down like watercolour. So I tend to prefer designer gouache. These, however, I've had for ages, as you can see by how worn out they are, but they are absolutely brilliant. They're really cheap, they're transportable, the colours are really vivid. So if ever you see any of these, I really do recommend these. They're a really good investment, and they stack, which is great. As we've discussed, brush pens and pro markers. I've got a Sharpie in here as well. And then we've got pastels. Always use chalk pastels or soft pastels. I tend never to use oil pastels in fashion illustration, purely because oil pastels tend to be quite thick and are difficult to move around the paper, whereas chalk pastels are much softer and can be much more malleable. Okay, so that's the equipment that we're going to be looking at. Now the next thing is the type of paper. And your choice of paper, again, is really important. I mean, when you're developing a portfolio or you're thinking about illustrations or presenting work, think about the paper as being as important as the content. So particularly if you're doing a portfolio, think about the type of paper that you mount your work on or you use as a background. And the colour of the paper as well can have a big difference on the content. You know, if you're doing something that is reminiscent of, I don't know, childhood nostalgia, and it might be that you want a kind of a rosy pink hue. If you add that to the paper in the portfolio or into the final illustration, that will add to the concept as well as the content. And also it means you don't have to kind of work so hard to kind of eliminate the white paper if you're looking for a colour. Okay, so what I've got here, I've got different types of paper. This is a paper that I use a lot. It's called a Tiziano paper. It's a pastel paper, and it has a slight surface to it. It's quite a decent weight, and it comes in a range of colours. So it really, you know, you've got lots of choice of colours to start with. So that's a good paper for working on. This one is a watercolour paper which I've chosen. It's a Bockingford, and it's got a real texture to it. I mean, if I just rub a bit of pastel on there, you can see that it picks up that texture immediately. So sometimes that can be to your benefit. Sometimes having a textured paper can really annoy you. So you might want to go for something smoother depending on what your style of illustration is. And then finally, I've got a couple of sheets of traditional traditional drawing paper. Can't remember what it's called, completely forgotten. But that has a very smooth surface and you won't get any texture in there at all. Okay, so for this final illustration, what I'm going to use is my favourite paper. I'm going to use my pastel paper with Tiziano. I'm going to start by drawing in the figure. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to put this onto super speed so you can see this fast. So as I said, what you'll get is you'll get the line drawings to start with in pencil, Then you'll get the drawing done, the detail drawn in a 2B, 5B pencil. Then there'll be colour washes. I'll wait for those to dry, work into them with coloured pencil, and then I'll finish off with brush pen. And in this instance, I'll use some pastel as well. Okay.